Hey everyone, today I'm going to give you some tips on what to consider before you decide to rent. This is really useful, particularly if you haven't rented before, but even for those who have, there might be some new stuff in here. Tip number one. So before you put in a rental application, don't just put in your notice for your current property. So don't just be like, hey, I need to rent now. Oh, okay, I'll put my notice in. Because unless you have somewhere to stay while you are actually looking for a place, or, going through application processes, or being, rejected, accepted, going through all that stuff. So yeah, don't jump the gun on that one. I've had friends that have done that and it hasn't worked out well. So a few things to consider when you're actually looking for properties. Firstly, your budget. That's going to be a big one. You want to make sure that you are actually able to afford, what you're trying to get. And you'll need to budget for your bond, which is usually 4 weeks equivalent worth of rent. And so that'll need to be in usually a few weeks before you move in. So that one has to sort of be all together in advance. Renting can be expensive. And, you might be thinking like, well, I'll get my bond that I've got for this property and use it for the next one. That's going to be a bit of a problem, firstly, because you're not guaranteed to get your bond back straight away. Sometimes they might dispute it if there is damage or if they think there's damage, and it might have to go through VCAT. And then the other problem with that one is that even if you get your bond back on time, it's going to be probably after you move in, unless you're in that situation, like I said before, where you're actually staying with somebody for a little while in between places, and then you might have a bit of time to get your bond back. But probably don't count on it, just because they might dispute it and try to put it through VCAT. So it's always the best bet, if you can, to have your rent and your bond ready to go. If you are struggling with that sort of stuff and you're just like, this is totally not achievable for me, talk to DHHS and talk about like their social housing, which is eligible for people who have healthcare cards and are low income earners. You can also maybe from there see if there's any community programs and things that might be useful for you, that might be able to help you out with that sort of stuff as well. So you can look up a variety of different properties online. So there's some really great websites, like realestate.com is one of probably the most common. Basically you just type in where you actually want to look for. Make sure that you're in the rent tab as well, otherwise it'll come up with properties to buy. And then you can scroll down and start looking. They usually won't be filtered, so you'll have to sort them using the sort tab. I usually just go price lowest to highest. It takes a little while to load, but there's a lot of different filters and things you can use on these sites, which I'll show you in just a moment. You can basically filter by almost anything, pretty much from amount of bedrooms, bathrooms, whether they consider pets, and everything else. So I'll run you through some. So you can choose the type of property, so house, apartment, townhouse, villa. Let's just say we're going for an apartment. You can choose the minimum and maximum amount of bedrooms. I definitely want 1 bedroom. That would be nice. You can also choose the minimum and maximum price that you're willing to pay as well. That might filter out some, for example, things that are $50 a week are probably going to be a little bit, there might be share houses if you don't like share houses, or might be a bit dodgy. You can also then go into like advanced filters and add any bathrooms you want, when you would like it to be available before as well. That can be really handy if you've got a date that you need to move in by, or available now. You can put in any other property requirements, so things like, do they consider pets, like I mentioned, outdoor areas, study, ensuite, dishwasher usually are pretty common ones, and built-in robes, air conditioning, heating. And if you use the little blue tabs, the drop-down tabs, there'll be a bunch more options as well. And then you hit update and it'll tell you, okay, there's nothing available now. So that's when you might have to go back and change your filters around and, move things around and so on. So yeah. Also consider when they're actually available from. As I showed you in the filters, you can usually sort of put in when you need it to be available from. So make sure that you do that, because you'd hate to like do all the application and go through all that stress and the inspections and everything and then be like, this isn't going to work for me because it's not available at the right time. That could be quite stressful. Also, when you're looking for properties, if you can help it, try to like look a fair bit in advance, because even though like you're going to have to finalize everything with your house, you're going to have to set up all of the gas and electricity and everything to transfer over to the new place. There's going to have to go through rental applications, inspections, and then, you know, wait till you actually get accepted as well. If you are struggling, you can usually go on a month-to-month lease at the end of your lease term, but you'll need to negotiate that with your real estate. If they're happy for you to do that, then yeah, then definitely go with that one, and that'll give you a little bit more time to sort of figure out where you're going and how you're going to get there. Consider where the rental properties are. Like, are they close to work, public transport, school, whatever it is that you might need. Sometimes you won't be able to like afford it because it tends to be a bit more expensive closer to towns and facilities and things. But if you can find somewhere nice and close by, yeah, it definitely saves a lot of time. You could save yourself a lot of petrol money in the long run as well, and a lot of hassle, which is always good. So consider the space that you're actually going to move into, and make sure that you check the photos and all of the details, because the last thing you want is like me when I first moved into this place. I hadn't actually checked all the information properly, and it turned out this place was furnished, so that was quite a stressful moving day, trying to figure out where I was going to put all this furniture that I didn't know that I had. So yeah, so definitely make sure that you check out the rental details prior. Things to look for include like if there's any wording around it being a share house situation. And if you are looking for a share house, just make sure that you look at the wording of the share house posts as well, and whether they're actually like going through legitimate real estate. Often they'll have like a private landlord who lives in the share house. Those situations can be quite tricky, so just make sure that you read all the fine print and make sure that they're legit. If there's any words that worry you, particularly in a private rental situation, I'd say probably avoid it, because yeah, you don't want to, like, it's your living situation, it's a lot, so try to keep yourself safe if you can. Sweet. Also, keep in mind that the photos in these things are probably going to be look a lot bigger online than they actually are. The photographers are pretty skilled at making things look big, using perspective and filters and things like that in panoramas. So just be aware that probably everything that you see is going to be like 2/3 of the size that it looks in the photo. Watch out for any big issues in the photos, anything that might be apparent. Often the photos will be amazing and perfect and probably won't capture like the stuff that might be wrong with the property because they want to put their best foot forward. But yeah, look at the photos carefully and see if there's anything that stands out, even if it's just a preference and you're like, oh gosh, there's a bit of fence missing, I can't have that, I've got a dog. So, and then you might be able to talk to your real estate and be like, hey, I'm interested in this property, but would it be able to be rented on the proviso that they fix the fence or something like that? And you can go from there. Also, a few other things to check for that you might want to check for: car parking spaces. You'd hate to move in and be like, I got to park on the road in a 2-hour parking zone and get tickets all the time. That's not good. Less likely in regional areas, but still something to consider. Is it a share house? How many bathrooms, bedrooms, and living spaces does it have? Does it have air conditioning? What type of air conditioning? Does it have heating? Some of them will only have one or the other. Does it have any gas heating facilities, and have they been serviced? That's another big one. And yeah, any other factors that you want to consider or have a preference on, like, you know, does it come furnished or unfurnished, like I mentioned earlier? Gardening, is the gardening done, or does it have big gardens that you're going to have to maintain, because that's going to take a bit of time and effort as well? Does it have a yard? Does it have a fenced yard? Are pets allowed without a pet application? Are they willing to even consider pets? That's also something if you've got a pet currently. So your very last step before you go through and actually inspect a property is contacting your real estate. So once you've found a place that you're like, I feel happy with this, it looks pretty good, but I want to check it out a little bit more, you'll need to contact the real estate to line up an inspection. Sometimes they'll have little links that you can click on their website for that property that might actually say, book an inspection here, and then you can just do it online. But sometimes you'll have to call the real estate and queue that up as well. Yeah, so make sure that you know when the inspection time is, you mark it on the calendar, and be there early. You really want to put your best foot forward at the inspection, because they might be trying to remember your face and your demeanor. Like, I'm not sure whether they will, but it's always a good idea just to be double careful and try to make yourself look as good as possible for the inspection. So try to get there early, and yeah, and you should be right. Next week we are going to chat a little bit about inspections, how to conduct a property inspection and how to make sure that that property is really right for you, how to catch any little problems that there might be or big problems that there might be before you move in, and how to negotiate those problems effectively with the real estate so that you can guarantee that they'll be fixed up when you move in. Awesome.